I'm an average Java programmer. I've never worked at a FANG. I've never built some cool open source library. I just get paid to keep boring enterprise software running. It's been a good career. High pay, low hours, work from home, better than digging ditches. Sadly, I think that career is coming to an end. Not just for me, but for all of us. I think AI is going to be the death of the average programmer. Yeah, I know I'm a bit late to the party. It's pretty apparent that AI is already dramatically affecting the software industry. But up until a few months ago, I was still in that minority that considered it a fad. I had heard about the wonders that Claude Code was doing on the command line, writing entire apps in a day, finding obscure bugs, navigating code bases without breaking a sweat. It all struck me as hype. I figured it was going to end up being more headache than panacea, like Node.js or React. I had used ChatGPT to answer basic coding questions in the past, but for actual coding, I always considered it a 50-50 tool. 50% correct code, 50% cleanup. And that's if the stars aligned. The margins just didn't seem worth my time, so I largely ignored the chatter around coding agents, figuring they were much the same. But I came to see the light in a roundabout way. It was through the Amelia meme that went viral last January.
Amelia was a character in a game called Pathways, funded by Shoutout UK and the British Home Office. It was intended to educate kids on the evils of so-called far-right narratives, especially anti-immigrant sentiment. Amelia was a villain. She championed crazy notions like reversing mass migration and generally advocating that Britain should be for the British. She was intended to be an extremist, the personification of what kids aren't supposed to do or think. Naturally, she became a hero across Britain and the West, and the pro-Amelia memes followed. Politics aside, I was impressed by how good the images and videos were. Check out this clip.
Hi, I'm Amelia. I'm English, and I love England.
I like having fish and chips and a pint at the local pub.
I like Shakespeare and Dickens, Tolkien and Lewis, Harry Potter.
I like pork sausage and dogs and fashion.
Haram! Haram!
But I don't like that.
That's pretty incredible. I was blown away by not only how good it was, but how quickly it surfaced. My guess is someone knocked that out in a day or two using local AI. A couple of years ago, it would have taken weeks of mousing through Blender and Photoshop to get the same result. I wanted to know how it was done. So I came up with a project. I would use AI to create an anime video of Amelia talking about Britain's immigration crisis, as well as use a coding agent to build an HTML visualization of the numbers. It was that second part that opened my eyes to the programmer's plight. But I'll get to that in a minute. First, let me talk a bit about the video. For some reason, I thought I could just download one of the AI video generation tools, craft a prompt, let my GPU smoke for an hour or so, and boom, I'd have an AI slop video. Turns out that ain't the case. Local AI tools are actually a lot of work. First off, I needed an image to animate. Now, I can't draw a straight line, so I figured I'd have AI convert an Amelia screenshot to an anime picture for me. There are no shortage of tools that can do this. Stable Diffusion Forge, Swarm UI, Invoke, Iris. Most of these are Python programs with a browser interface. They're all easy to install, but using them is daunting. To make a decent image, you have to know about checkpoints and models, LoRa's, sampling, in-painting, and a bevy of other tweaks and settings. If that's your bag, then just go with Stable Diffusion. It's the most popular, and there are a ton of tutorials for it. If you want something programmatic, I'd recommend FluxC, now called Iris. It's a Python CLI that's prompt-based and it's pretty good for basic images. I messed around with all of them, but ended up getting AI Dadaism more often than not. I finally threw in the towel and went to ChatGPT. 3 quick prompts turned this into this. Good enough for me. Time to animate it. The standard for local AI video generation is Comfy UI. This thing is a beast. Not only do you have to know what models and plugins to use, you have to dick around with wiring it all together in a cumbersome interface. If you're interested in graphic design, then I'm sure Comfy UI can offer control and flexibility you might not get from online services, provided you have the skills and a beefy box. I spent a while wrangling Comfy and some of its cousins like Swarm UI, and the best I managed was getting Amelia to raise her eyebrows. So again, I turned to the online services. I tested Sora, Nano Banana Gemini, and Grok Imagine with a prompt to animate Amelia saying,
"We need remigration immediately! return the refugees, revoke the settlements, restore Britain.
Sora, which is discontinued, sucked. It was slow and added watermarks and took too many artistic liberties.
Return the refugees. Revoke the settlements. Restore Britain.
Nano Banana produced quality clips, but it censored me. I gave it my test case and out popped a wagging finger in the form of, "I can't generate that video." At first I thought the banana was under heavy load or simply confused, but on a hunch I kept the prompt the same but changed Amelia's dialogue to something a Harvard-educated, blue-haired algorithm would approve of.
Needs a net zero climate policy. Restore our air. Save our wildlife. I love puppies.
And what do you know? So it seems the banana didn't want me bad-mouthing immigration. I thought the Biden-era censorship at Google had dampened a bit, but I guess not. So the banana was out on principle alone. The third time was a charm with Grok Imagine. It was fast, didn't censor me, and stuck to my prompts without adding extra flair. The downside was that it only let me create 10-second clips, meaning I'd have to make my video piecemeal. I wrote a script, broke it down into 10-second chunks, and got to work. My prompts weren't very detailed, yet Grok somehow knew what I was aiming for just from the dialogue. It kept Amelia's accent consistent, used the right intonation, and even added gestures and expressions that I hadn't thought of. It was pretty cool how easy it was. It was like Grok was reading my mind. But I wasn't completely satisfied with Amelia's accent. Grok made her sound 30-ish. I wanted her to sound 20-ish. I fixed that with Chatterbox, another Python CLI program. I fed it a voice sample of an English girl and gave it some dialogue, and it produced the sound I was looking for on the first try.
Britain was never like this, never for 1,000 years. Then at the space of just 25, it was utterly transformed under the boot of leftist.
I used Kdenlive to stitch together my audio and video, and after a couple hours I had a shitty video that I was damned pleased with. As someone who lacks the will and skill to do audio-visual work, today's AI tools are magical for creating good enough content for side projects and experiments and whatever. But in the hands of actual creators, I imagine they're revolutionary. Sure, there's a lot of slop, but also a lot of innovation. Take a look at what Gossip Goblin is doing.
The saying don't build spaceships. They don't get to see what we see. You can't blame a man for madness, can you?
I think his work indicates that AI will be as disruptive to the film industry as it will be to the software industry. Anyway, let's get to the fun stuff, the coding agent. I wanted an animated map to go along with my Amelia video. My goal was not to do any of the coding myself. I installed Codex in WSL, grabbed some map images and Britain's immigration data, and started talking to the agent. The conversation went something like this. Build a map from these images. Pull the data and make one dot represent 1,000 immigrants. Move those dots from source countries to Britain. Add labels. Embed my video. Wire up. Click to play. Step by step, I described what I wanted, let Codex churn, then F5'd my browser to view the results, and step by step, Codex delivered. It was fast, it told me what it was doing while I was doing it, it committed changes to Git, it suggested next steps, and most amazingly, or alarmingly, depending on how you want to look at it never made a mistake. It was spooky. What was even spookier was how quickly I stopped looking at the generated code. After an iteration or two, I realized I didn't care what the code looked like or whether it was efficient because the app was working exactly how I envisioned it. Incredulous, I tried another project. I ported AxeCrypt, the Windows encryption program, to Linux. Codex knocked it out in 45 minutes, and once again, it didn't make any mistakes. So I kept going. I've got an ancient Panasonic printer that's never worked on Ubuntu. Codex adapted a driver from the AUR that had me printing and scanning in less than an hour. AI is no longer the 50-50 coding tool I thought it was. The hype seems to be legit. My Amelia video was a toy project, but people are using AI to make serious software. Remember the Iris AI tool I mentioned earlier? It was built by a guy named Antirez. He did it all with Claude. He never touched a line of code. Sure, AI is still hallucinate and get stuff wrong, but people are figuring out mitigations. Ralph loops, context clearing, multi-agent code reviews, and of course the agents themselves keep getting better. Boris Cherny, the creator of Claude Code, said at a recent conference that Claude itself is now building Claude. He says coding is basically solved. That came as a shock to me. Basically solved. I mean, how long did that evolution take? A year? That's bananas. So what does it mean for the average programmer? I think it means they'll die out over the next 10 years. The average programmer is basically an assembly line worker. He's not coming up with novel algorithms to cure cancer or build quantum computers. He's just assembling widgets with code instead of rivets. Robots took over the assembly lines at Ford and GM decades ago. Today's agents are robots for code. Why wouldn't they have a similar effect on the tech workforce? If average programmers like me are wiped out, then I think the professional programmers that remain will fall into two camps. In one will be the true computer scientists and math geeks, the brainiacs needed to build and steer the new AIs, migrate legacy systems to something agent-based, design new ways to compute, all that high-level stuff. And the second camp will be the quasi-coders, or rather, maybe a new kind of DevOps. Let's call it Agent Ops. Their job will be knowing how to set up and orchestrate coding agents, how to apply them to business domains, validate results, and then, here and there, coding around model quirks and limitations. Maybe the coding part will even disappear. I've been a coder for 25 years. Codex is better than I am, hands down. It's faster, it has a vastly wider knowledge base, it can reason better, and that's right now. Once reliability is solved, and I don't see why it can't be, then the guys in the second camp will be more like digital machinists, powering up and operating the lathes and mills of super agents, then pressing a big green button and waiting for the output.
I enjoyed coding. Grabbing a bug out of Jira and chasing it for hours got me high. I was in a flow state most days and getting paid for it. I'll miss that. But today I've still got a job. I'm still getting paid. Only now my job is much easier because I have a junior developer working for me. One who's smarter than me and only costs $20 a month. I might be able to ride that train into retirement. But if you're under 50 and still dismissive of AI, I suggest you take a weekend and do an experiment like mine. Extrapolate out a couple years. I think you'll see the future. Either brainiac or machinist. Or maybe a janitor at an AI data center. But I don't think you'll be an average programmer. Because I don't think such a thing will exist. And on that happy note, here's some Oregon countryside for your enjoyment.